welcome to our meeting today. And my name is Blessing Ngwe, and I'm the exchange coordinator for Anglophone Africa. Today, our meeting, let me get onto our meeting. Sorry, I'm not going to share a slide. I'm just going to share a little bit about our meeting, then introduce our presenter today. Our title today is, Can Young Professionals Change the Face of Artisanal and Small-Scale Mining in Africa? Well, this question puts a smile on my face because I can be one of the first people to say, yes, they can. Anyway, on the one hand, the deficiency of technical skills has hampered productivity in artisanal and small-scale mining, poor mining methods, processing and recovery of minerals. On the other hand, the educated youths in Africa struggle to find jobs in formal markets. Is there an ample opportunity for Africa's young professionals to be absorbed in artisanal and small-scale mining? Mine engineers, geologists, accountants, and lawyers, among others. This month's webinar, our webinar today, will seek to draw lessons from testimonies of young professionals that have ventured into small-scale and artisanal mining to solve the twin challenge of lack of technical skills in ASM among many jobless young Africans. My guest today is Mr. Panashe Muguza. Panashe Muguza is a junior mine planner at Union Jack Mine, Golden Copy, Makonde area in Zimbabwe. He's the son of a small-scale miner. He holds a bachelor in mining engineering at the University of Johannesburg. He has also received several awards like the First Year Top Achievers Award in 2017 and the Dean's Honors Role in 2017. Mr. Muguza is in a number of societies like the Golden Key, International Honor Society, Engineers Without Borders. Let me welcome Panashe to this forum. And Panashe, let me leave this time to you to go ahead.
All right, thank you very much. I'd like to start by thanking you all for giving me this platform to express my experience and how much I know and have seen in the industry. I graduated last year. I finished my studies last year, and soon after went into industry. I was working at in Mpumalanga, which has some very old gold mines, Barberton mines, and then I moved on to do some research for the University of Johannesburg as a research assistant at Driefontein mine, and then I came to Zimbabwe to assist with some consultancy work, as well as operating a junior mining company. So what I would like to start by highlighting is the need for proper career guidance for all the STEM young students who are coming up out of high school and looking into getting into mining careers. Because if that doesn't become a priority, I don't think we ever meet the need for skills in Africa. We all know how much of a role the industry itself, right, plays in the economy, and not just the African economy, but globally. We export so many minerals to different parts of the world. So that being said, there's quite a variety of careers or disciplines that people can follow. This career book, this workbook, I will share this so that everyone can have access to it, and actually use it to guide some young professionals was developed by the SIMM, which is the Southern African Institute of Mining and Metallurgy, which is what I'm part of. So it has what they call a Young Professionals Council, where we get involved with universities, as well as big mining houses to help high school students to actually get into mining. The skills deficit is really something that has happened due to a variety of factors. Firstly, we have a very high dropout rate in universities. The University of Johannesburg, at my faculty, we had a dropout rate of just about 51% for the entire faculty. And mining had a higher rate. So a lot of students, start out in STEM studies, but they don't see it through. That's the first thing. The second thing is disruptive technologies. A case study would be what's happening in Mpumalanga. There's a lot of coal mining there. However, the issue is there's new technologies that can eliminate certain phases of the production cycle. So for example, a coal mine will do some drilling, right, and blasting to remove overburden material, and then loading and hauling, what we call the production cycle, which is drilling, blasting, loading, and then hauling. Now, there's a very big machine called a surface miner, which does surface excavation, right? Moving, drilling, and blasting. So the drilling crews and the blasting engineers and technicians won't have work, right? So we're talking about maybe 25 personnel who will be out of work because of this new technology, which might be safer in certain aspects and then might be more reliable and will deliver, quick returns to the company itself. However, people will not be fitting in well to the corporate profile of the business anymore. So they will have to either upgrade their skills and find something else to do. So those are the things that have led to the skills deficit. In terms of solutions to that, I would say we need to start with mentoring young people to get into the mining business, to get into different disciplines. So we have things like geologists, engineers, right? We have surveyors, we have metallurgists, and we have so many different disciplines that young people can pursue. So this career handbook will really help to guide anyone into, getting into mining and developing themselves as a professional. Now, to the main question, can young professionals transform and have an effect in artisanal mining and small-scale mining? Most definitely, young professionals can do so. I am a case study. I would say my experience is the case in point. And when I started out during the beginning of the year, we weren't, doing as well at our mine. It's called Golden Copy Farm, where we're located. The name of the mine is Union Jack Mine. It's 22 kilometers outside of Chinhoyi, which is in Zimbabwe. So we have a lot of mechanized mining that we're doing. However, we needed to focus on our sampling and prioritize our geological surveys and know exactly where we're mining, because if you don't know where you're going, any road can take you there. So we made it a priority to do that, and then we ramped up production by almost 300%. So there's been a lot of things that I've been able to apply because I saw it while working, doing experiential work, and also learning at the university. I think one thing small-scale miners need to prioritize is developing associations that cater for young professionals. This is important because most mining houses have seen that to be the way they can create a skills pool that they can benefit from. However, artisanal miners and small-scale miners don't have that, right? So within the artisanal mining bodies and associations, there can be a young professionals council or a young professionals fund, which helps and does workshops to help young students in high schools in terms of career guidance and helping them get into careers in mining. So I think that's one solution which really can go a long way in benefiting the sector as a whole. We do have a lot of safety issues. We do have a lot of health issues. And I think the law that exists in most African countries should be tailored to address that. And we do need consultants for that. They cannot, adequately address certain things in amendments of the law if they have not consulted an engineer on site or a geologist who's there on site and who actually understands some of the issues. I think South Africa is, one country we should look at and try to emulate in terms of their law. They have a good legislative framework that works well to address the issues that I've mentioned on health and safety, as well as identifying historically disadvantaged groups within their mining communities, because what you call the MPRDA, the Minerals and Petroleum Resources Development Act of South Africa, identifies these groups. So we do have, an example that we can look up to. I'm not sure how much time I have. I don't want to take too much time, so please let me know what time I should be stopping the presentation. I could go through the document, but that might take a bit more time.
Okay, Panashe, you've got time enough. We've got over an hour presentation. We'll make it about 45 minutes so that we've got a question and answer time. We can see some questions coming in through. So if you want to take breaks and answer the questions, but yeah, you've got 45 minutes to do your presentation. Then we've got 30 minutes for question and answer.
Okay, great. So let me finish with the workbook and just go through it with you. And then we can look at the questions afterwards. Okay, so, okay, this page is addressing the paths you can take in mining, the career paths, because there are different avenues to where we want to go. But we should explore those options, knowing the other options that you have as a young professional or as a high school student who really is not sure about what they want to do. So we obviously have to start with the basics on the ground, which is being a miner and what that entails, the risks involved, and things required of you. So a miner would, typically be responsible for the drilling and blasting of the workings that are there. Now, there's a lot of risks, obviously, with handling explosives. There's a lot of risks with the blast itself and the blast outputs, like vibrations, fly rock, and dust. So one has to be aware of what the work involves, and also be looking forward to get into the work. So, well, this is for the South African domain. However, I think it can apply to most African countries, where the engineer in training, right, if someone decides to take the mining engineering route, that would take up to 36 months, 12 to 36 months, depending on which commodity you're mining and where exactly it's based. And then being a miner, you can do that for about half a year. Then you have shift supervisors, which oversee the miners and the crews that are working in certain areas or zones of the mine itself. We have overseers, right? We have section managers and production managers, and then the mine manager. So this is on the mining side of mine operations, right? So we do have those who are in production, and then we have technical services, right? Which involve geology, and geotechnical engineering. Geologists analyze the ore body, the mineral contents, and the rock type that we're mining. A mine geologist is more specifically directed towards how they can develop a model that the engineers can work with. However, any geologist would know a lot more about earth science, but a mine geologist has to focus on making sure they highlight the highest paying areas or pay zones of the mine, so that a feasibility study can be done to show if this is going to be profitable. So young professionals who have done geology definitely can come and add a lot on any mine. And they don't need to be employed there full time. They can be consultants. And that's why, you know, the small scale industry sometimes doesn't really get enough foresight for planning, because they don't know exactly where they are. They don't know where exactly the body, you know, intersects with a fault or a dike, how much, you know, dilution they'll incur, and what kind of rock they're mining. That's important information, because earth science is very complex, and once you open up the ground, it wants to close by itself, naturally so, because of the weight of the rock. So, you know, those are things that consultants can definitely help with, and young professionals can contribute towards. We don't have too many geologists that are sticking around to develop their own consulting companies or, you know, those kind of services. Most people are absorbed by the big mining houses, and then they go on to have quite good careers. However, I think there's a big opportunity in helping small scale miners scale up and be more productive, and to understand the safety issues, and to also be quite geared to deal with the risks, because a risk assessment is a priority at any stage of the operations. One should always be understanding their risks and how they can mitigate them. Okay, so we've discussed production, mining, and then we talked about technical services, and then alternative career paths, right? So once you do obtain some level of experience, you can go back to academia, right, to lecture and teach at a university, right, or become a specialist consultant to the mining sector. And I think this is important because it, again, contributes towards the pool of skills that will be absorbed by the mining industry. So one should always be open-minded. Right now, we have cost engineers. We have a lot of, well, because of the, the new technologies that we have a lot of data scientists, and we're working with big data and processing big data for big mines. However, we should be focusing on getting the fundamentals right, because that's what's quite important. A lot of young professionals don't have sufficient experience, but are willing to learn. And so the artisanal and small scale industry is somewhere they can start, but also be effective. We don't, have too many opportunities as we did before. Why? Because some mines have closed due to the declining commodity prices, geopolitical risks, the lack of utilities like electricity, and water. However, there is so much that one can pursue once they go to university, because now we're talking about mine closure and rehabilitation. However, these old mines can now actually be revived to become, some kind of project that can generate an income, some revenue generating project that can help the local economy. So, for example, you have the idea of underground pumped hydro electric storage, which was something I worked on during my honors project. And it's basically trying to convert an old mine shaft into a power plant, an energy plant. So using the water that we have, the acid mine drainage, right, that we have on old mines, we can create reservoirs, one above, one below, and then generate electricity using that. So that's one thing young professionals can bring to the table, that innovation and critical thinking, problem-solving skills that can go along in creating a problem, right, through mining. A lot of times we are creating problems, right? But at the same time, coming with a lot of remedial actions and proposals that can totally transform the way we see mining. Because there's a lot of lobby groups who think, mining is just desecrating and, destroying our natural resources. And there's a lot of irresponsible mining out there. I won't deny that. But we have so many opportunities, right, to create solutions that can contribute to the economy. So we need a consensus. We need to understand that there's interdependency within our industry. If you take a look at the issue of chemicals and chemical consumption within mining and chemical disposals, it's quite evident that we need better monitoring, right? However, the same chemicals can still be reused in some instances and can be used to contribute towards the recycling of certain kinds of waste. And that can be something that people also use to generate an income and create jobs and the like. So there are alternative career paths, and that's what we most times don't see because we don't think outside the box so much. But once we see that in every crisis there is opportunity, and there is always a variety of ways to address those problems, then we'll improve, and then we'll, take certain measures to make sure that we're involved in solving the problems that are collectively ours. So an example of what I would say was an alternative that became a success story is a young chemical engineering graduate who saw that there's a lot of coal dust and also ash that was being generated at the coal mines. And it wasn't really, something they thought was going to be used again or was useful. However, they put some filters on top of chimneys at collieries where they burn coal and at energy plants. And then those filters would trap the ash, and then they would use the ash to make bricks. They would actually construct homes with those bricks. And they're still trying to commercialize and scale up, that model. So there is a lot of, doubt about where we're going in terms of our environmental issues. I think right now there's a lot of talk about green energy, clean energy, and doing everything cleanly. But we need to also address what has been done and the damage that has been done through innovative solutions. So as you can see, the career handbook has a lot of, quotes and motivational talk, which you can use to inspire, because I think everyone needs to be inspired to get into the mining space. You need to develop a thick skin and a lot of willpower to stay in the industry and become an accredited professional. So this one says, it is not the person who says there are no jobs available that gets hired, but the one who keeps searching. So one of the things we need to work hard on is our networking. And it has tips for that. And then writing a resume. This is important because you always want to know the track record of who you are working with, the young professional you are getting involved with. So that's from their academia and also their professional experience. That's important because you can understand how they fit in well to your business and how you can use them and their skills fully, because they're there to add value. And that's what any business owner should prioritize. And I think artisanal miners have traditionally not been seen by professionals as, business people who are thinking long-term and actually going to be involved in the economy on a long-term basis. People think that you're going to be an artisanal miner for 2 years or 3 years, right? And you're going to get, quite a lot of income and generate some revenue, and then move all your earnings to something else, to another business, and get into tourism or get into agriculture. However, we sometimes are not aware that we have been doing all of this for years and years and for centuries when it comes to small-scale mining. So just a brief history on the mining that's being done now in Joburg. Johannesburg gold in the Wits Basin was discovered in the 1860s. And then after that, we had quite a lot of migrant labor from all parts of the world. The Dutch, Spanish, English migrated to Joburg. And most of those people came and started out as small-scale miners. They were doing riverbed mining, and they were trenching and they were looking for a lot of surface gold, but most of it was underground. If you look at Australia, the same thing happened. Whole families were going out to mine in places like Kalgoorlie, where there's a famous Kalgoorlie mine with the big open pit there. Families would now come in tent. After the gold rush started, they would come in and use tents and camp and be settled there for years and years. They'd generate enough to go and start a family business, a hotel, or something else. So it did a lot for the local economy. And it's always the way it has been. If you're going to have a lot of economic growth, you need more entrepreneurs, and we need more innovation, because there is no shortage of problems on the African continent. However, we need more problems to be addressed in a very systematic way and using mathematical thinking, because most of what we are doing doesn't have some risk analysis, doesn't have some calculated decision making. And that's where we risk the continuity of business, the continuity of operations. So that's why it's important to engage young people who have acumen and the knowledge of how to work around the problems that are involved. So let me just take you to this page on the minerals industry and women. So traditionally, it's been seen as a very masculine industry and male-dominated industry, and it still is because of the nature of the work. And miners never used to let women mine because there were so many risks involved, and the men would do a lot of that work. But we've seen a big transition over the years, and we've got a lot of bodies. WIMSA in South Africa, here we have Zimbabwe Women in Mining, and all around the African continent, we see a lot of women who are in the industry and who are pioneering change and doing so much to benefit the economy at large and to contribute to our local economies, because a lot of what African countries are earning as forex comes through the mining sector and through small-scale miners. And we do have a lot of conflict minerals, diamonds, more especially, and the gold sector. However, all of this still contributes towards a lot of livelihoods. In the gold sector in Zimbabwe, the dependency ratio, which is the number of people who rely on one person in the industry, right? Hello, am I audible? I think I lost my connection there.
Yeah, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Okay, all right, great. So I was talking about, you know, a lot of what is going on in the industry in terms of the contribution towards the GDP by women in mining. And it's important that women know that there's so many things you can do in the value chain. It's a big, big value chain. There's so many things that you know, require some training and enough experience, right? But there are also things you can apply what you know about marketing, about manufacturing. There's always things that you can implement within the value chain of mining, because it's the backbone of the African continent and several African countries. Let me try to get back that workbook on the screen. I hope you can all see it. So there's some stories that you can read in the workbook about some ladies who have made a lot of progress within the mining space. And then some issues on expectations of students from the industry after graduation and the reality that they meet after they leave university. Now, I mentioned mentoring earlier, but I think I should emphasize it because we have so many young people who are not quite sure about how things should work and where they should think is a key focus area for their careers and how they can improve their skills. I think this is the last thing I'll discuss before we get into questions. So mentorship is very key because we traditionally have not had a lot of that growing in the African, in African economies and African countries and schools. I think it's one thing to have a teacher and lecturer who's guiding you, but a mentor understands the experience completely. They understand your shortcomings and where you can improve. And I think most people have focused on, their weaknesses. What am I not good at? And how can I improve at that? Instead of saying, what are my strengths? And how can I polish my strengths so that I can effectively use them to propel me forwards? And then as I grow in that space, my weaknesses will also, improve. So I think young people definitely need mentorship. They need a guiding hand to show them that things are not as simple as they would expect, and to guide them towards success. And it is by some, called the $1 billion secret to success. And then lastly, let me just share some books that the YPC believes you should read before you turn 30. The first one is So Good They Can't Ignore You. Why Skills Trump Passion in the Quest for Work You Love. This is by Cal Newport. The other one is How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. Never Eat Alone and Other Secrets to Success, One Relationship at a Time, by Keith Ferrazzi. Getting Things Done, The Art of Stress-Free Productivity, David Allen. And then Lean In, Women, Work, and the Will to Lead, Sheryl Vanderberg. This would be great for young women and even experienced women in mining. And then Think and Grow Rich, lastly by Napoleon Hill. So that being said, this is the conclusion of my presentation and talk. However, we're moving on to questions, so I'll still be engaging you further on what you may want to know and any further questions that you have regarding what we've discussed.
Thank you, Panashe, for the presentation, and welcome, Mukasiri Sibanda. I'm going to just say a few things before I hand over to Mukasiri Sibanda to do the question and answer session. We've got some questions which are already in the chat box. But well, Panashe is my son. Well, when he finished mining engineering, he came to my small scale mine. That's Union Jack, where I was doing small scale operations. Let me testify and say our production more than tripled. Panashe came. The production tripled. And I have learned so much in this short space that I've been with Panashe. Yes, I had other qualified people at my mind, just a few people who I was working with who were not qualified. But Panashe came in and was really hands-on the work. And he started focusing more on production and doing correct things and hiring young technical people on the mine. I've now learned as a small scale miner that we need technical people to be able to produce, to be able to bring out the goodness of small scale mining, to be able to be really productive as small scale miners. We can't run away from having technical people on our mines. So this has changed the face of I'm sorry, I think I'd lost connection.
Yeah, true. That's go ahead, please, blessing.
Okay, but briefly, that's what I just wanted to say. I wanted to just say we need technical people. The face of my mind has just changed. So let me hand over to you, Mukasiri Sibanda, to go on with the question and answer.
Thank you, colleagues. And I want to apologize that I okay, so I need to trigger the what is it called, the camera on. But thank you very much, and my apologies for joining the conversation late. And this, I think, is a very interesting and timely conversation that we are having here. Let me flip this and ask you, anyone that is listening to this conversation, what is your reaction? How are you feeling? And in terms of your working arrangement, do you work with technical people? And do you feel like if you have not been doing so, this is kind of like if motivated you to also see the value of working with the professionals? So let's make it as much interactive, share. So feel free to raise your hand. I can pick you or even unmute and say what you want in terms of your reaction. We have heard an amazing story. It's about the mother and the son that they are combining. And I'm sure the most important part of it is that we have seen Panashe, his education was funded by gold. And the skills has been acquired. You could be everywhere, Australia or in another large scale mining company, but he chose to say, let me go back and see if I can stretch my capacities and improve productivity of the mine. So I have an inbox chat here. Thank you very much. That is Richard Kadega to everyone. Thank you very much for the very informative presentation. I have one question. What do you think are the critical soft skills that graduates should acquire from learning institutions which could make them sell well in the industry? Thank you. Panashe, I advise you to take these questions so that at least if I take a couple questions and comments, then I'll give it to you to respond. Any other comments or questions? Feel free, raise your hand, colleagues, unmute, and then you shoot. All right, all right.
I would want to ask a question.
Go ahead,
I want to ask a
yes.
question.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
So my question is, I now understand that we have some technical people working with the small scale mining industry. I want to find out, how did you get the young people, young graduates to start working with the small scale mining companies? Because here with our university, we are a mining university, but you don't see the students wanting to go with the small scale minings. How did you make it? How did you get the student to want to work with the small scale mining industry?
That's a big question, Vivian. I think Panashe, you are the right person. Please take care of this question. Just wait, hold on for now. I think I'm taking a couple of more questions. But what I see the opportunity going forward, Vivian, you need a one-on-one conversation with Panashe. If you can invite him virtually or physically to your university to talk to students, sometimes such interactions can change the game. Any more questions or comments?
Yes, I want to make an intervention. So thank you very much for this presentation. Very interesting. I'm a geologist and I've been working with small scale miners for 20 years now. And my experience is that there's also a problem of the technologies that you can use, the systems that are available to the miners, the money they can put in, more or less advanced tools. So the way they operate, there's usually a sort of difference. There's a difference between what the young mining engineers learn in schools, because usually they're very much focusing on large-scale mine, or I would say very efficient operations. And there we have a sort of high-tech, low-tech issue. So I wanted to know if you have any hint about this, and how would you do that to in fact fill the gap between the knowledge or the theoretical knowledge of young engineers and what they can expect to find in many countries of Africa as the small scale and artisanal miners. That's my question. Thanks.
Thanks, Panashe. Can I take one more question or comment before Panashe responds? And one more contribution, a comment, a question?
One
if
more,
not,
please.
Yes, Vivian, no worries. Please go ahead.
Yes. From his discussion, presentation, he mentioned there was a lot of challenge when it came to the safety of the people and then their operations. But in the same discussion, I didn't see or hear him ask that we employ safety engineers or environmental and safety engineers that will take care of those aspects. But it's more like everything is centered around just the mining and not other things that makes the whole work as a unit. I feel that there should be a room for safety and environmental engineers that would handle those aspects. I don't know if their company has that, but I think there should be something like that.
Thank you, Vivian. That's a powerful question. And I'm sure this is a mining that is upscaling, formalizing, that is in different growth phases. But we would want to understand, it's not like in my belief, like your fully fledged large-scale mining entity, but an entity also that is also confronted with other problems that are confronting most artisanal small-scale mining. But what is different now is it has got a mining engineer in terms of production, things I think where Panashe knows best is trying to address. But I don't want to take this thing from Panashe. We have 4 questions. The one, I hope the background noise is not disturbing much. The one is to talk about soft skills. What is your advice in terms of the soft skills that young graduates that are interested in mining business should be able to acquire, right? So that's the first question. The other question that we have revolves around interest. How do we get to interest young professionals to work in artisanal and small scale mining? So this is another question that you have to tackle. Then the other one revolves around technologies. Mining, there are many technologies that are being used, but looking at this business, what would you think would be the best fit technologies for artisanal small scale mining? And then the last one from Vivian, again, she gave us two questions, but on the last question is, yes, we can hear about the mining engineering and so forth and so on, but how are you working, for instance, on safety, health issues and environment with other experts? So I throw this to you, Panashe, and once again, thank you very much for taking your time to be available to share what you have learned at college and also what you have learned through the operations that you are involved in with your mother. So over to you, Panashe. We are very much excited to have you here. Feel free, and this is your space. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mkasiri. I think there's a lot we need to as priority areas in mining, and it is something we often don't to sit and do strategic and tactical planning at any mine, right? We need to have foresight. We need to have a life of mine plan, and we need to know how long we are aiming to mine. Then we can plan everything else. Now, the question was asking about soft skills. What soft skills could just equip with? I think one of the most essential is financial literacy, cost management, because there's a lot of fluctuation in commodity prices, right? The gold price is not steady. Neither is the price of cobalt or platinum and most mineral commodities. Right now, platinum is quite up, and one needs to know how best to control costs at any kind of operation. And you won't use this just for mining. This will be for any kind of enterprise or business you'll be involved in. So cost control, cost management, and financial literacy is important. But on the softer side of the phrase itself, because you asked about soft skills, I would say business etiquette is important. One should know how to do an effective presentation and use diagrams and visual tools to display and express what they want. Obviously, computer skills are essential. One should know how to draft and respond to emails. And then communication skills. Communication skills are very important because mines have a lot of issues and a lot of fatalities and accidents because of insufficient communication. One has to know how to write a report. One has to know how to use a communication book, even using the tools on site, like radios, just to communicate to an operator or to security is quite important. And most universities will have a communication skills module at their university. So those are the kind of skills that I would consider essential in this day and time. The other question was, how do you get young professionals to join you or inspire them to do so? I think you need to get yourselves out there as responsible miners, right? It's essential because everyone wants to a business or an entity that there's going to be longevity shows that they are very intentional, but they're also responsible about what they're doing and the work they're involved in. So, that's one, important aspect. One important aspect of marketing yourselves as an entity. Small-scale miners should have registered businesses and registered companies, or at least be planning to do so, because young professionals will stick around if there are employment benefits and there is a future that they see with this company or this business. If not, and if small-scale miners are not planning to register any company, they can get consultants, right? They can talk to young professionals about becoming their consultants, maybe to do their environmental impact assessment reports, right, to the authorities, or to come and do a mine plan, a production plan for them, so that they can scale up their production. And, it's important that at every single stage of production, you identify your needs as an operation. You identify what is lacking, and then young professionals can come and complement your efforts and assist you and guide you on a technical level. Because yes, you want to do things profitably, but there should be a technical feasibility. That's very important, because the ground is studied to analyze geological features, to analyze risk areas. So that's one thing that should be prioritized, because if your small shaft collapses, right, and people are trapped underground and you lose equipment and people might even die, then that was a risk that should have been foreseen. And that's why the skills are there, to identify what kind of geological features, what kind of strength the material we are mining has, the rock, the hard rock, right, and soft rock areas. So it all requires a technical level of knowledge that can be applied to solve such problems. By definition, a shaft is actually supposed to be bigger than 3.7 meters. Anything smaller than that is not really considered a shaft. So it's those kind of things that people need to, apply and think about, because you need timber supporting systems. You need to keep the ground in place, because it's working against you as much as you are working with it. You need to manage and control the movement of rock, the rock mass at large around you. And then the issue of technologies. What kind of technologies are to be best used or best utilized in the artist space? I would say the first thing you should make a priority is things like your radios, your mobile radios for communication, right? Because you need that for security and for production, right? You need to have radios, and you can communicate quickly and efficiently over long distances. The other technology you can prioritize is, I think, drone technology. It's not, difficult to use or operate. Drones are very affordable now because of, the big consumption in electronic devices and the big market that's out there. There's a lot of drones that are now available online that you can buy online. There's a lot of drones you can now ship from countries like Dubai, depending on what you want to use it for. But it allows you to be able to quickly survey from an aerial perspective what exactly you're doing. Gold detectors have been used traditionally, right? But one always involve and include things like IP survey machines, right, which can give you a magnetic signal that can detect metals on your property. That's an important technology. A lot of those kind of services you don't need to own in-house. you can always get other people, other consultants who have used such technologies and hire them to do so, maybe for a month or two, and generate some maps for you so that you know exactly what is beneath your feet and you know how to access it. Because the mining engineer cannot help you if you don't have a geological model. We need to know what does the ore body actually look like and how can we mine it best, right? Knowing the risks involved. And then lastly, the issue of health and safety. I actually did highlight health and safety earlier in my presentation. And I think a lot of that really depends on the legislation. We are knowledgeable about to some degree, but how much are we using procedure and legislation that is there to protect the miner, to protect the environment, right? Because you have a Water Management Act, you have Forestry Acts, you also have the Mining Acts, right? The actual mining activity that is, on the operation that needs to be monitored, and you need an inspectorate that, oversees that sufficiently. But without adequate supervision or inspection that happens from the state or the government bodies, you can have some young professionals who know a lot about safety. Mining engineers, are very competent in terms of safety and occupational hygiene, right? From dust control to auditory issues, to inhaling of gases. There's so many risks. There's so many occupational risks, right, that we can identify and actually put measures to control. But again, health and safety is something you should be willing to spend on because it's important. You're dealing in human lives. So you should make sure your workforce is equipped properly. They can be exposed to chemicals. They can be exposed.
I think we have lost Panashe. So let's continue the conversation while we are waiting for Panashe to rejoin. And we feel very privileged, I must say. In Africa, the biggest challenge we have is how do we ensure that we develop the capacity to be able to exploit our resources? Because most of the way, by design, the mining sector is the policy environment is pro-foreign direct investment. When policymakers look at that, so allow me just to wrap up a bit. I just wanted to say we are very privileged to have young professionals such as Panashe in Africa that are willing to blood their skills, to demonstrate their skills on how they can make Africans be entrepreneurs, have that direct connection in terms of exploiting their resources instead of relying on outside help. So Panashe, sorry, I know you had lost temporarily. Please, can you just try to reconnect from where you left?
All right, thanks, Mukasiri. I had a technical glitch, but what I was talking about is, basically understanding the implications of health and safety regulations and putting measures in place. We have a safety officer. I think she had asked if our company is, doing things with safety monitoring. We have a safety officer. We make sure that everyone has sufficient PPE, personal protective equipment, and the right tools for the job. Because we understand and appreciate the level of risk people take so that we continue operations. So a very holistic operation. It's one where we understand how all these different moving parts contribute to the whole and, the vision, the long-term objective of the business. So miners should understand the importance of engaging their own communities and making sure environmental issues are catered for. That's why there are professionals who focused on ESG issues, which is environmental, social, and governance issues. And one ad, miner who is willing to go long term and to really, make sure they're effective in their own domain and in their own community should prioritize. They should look at ESG issues. You should have an ESG officer, right, who addresses issues with all the environmental management agencies and law associations and the government itself, so that you are compliant. But you need someone who understands and knows the law to consult you. If you need a lawyer, you can always consult a lawyer and eventually have them in-house. But like I mentioned earlier, we need to form associations. We need to form associations, right, as artisanal miners, right? We need to make sure that those associations are the primary place where young professionals are actually engaged. You can just do a workshop, right, where you are trying to get young professionals to understand some of the challenges. Let's say child labor issues as well as environmental issues can be addressed at a workshop. But what you're doing is making sure that you have opportunities to network and to know these young professionals and eventually convince them to come and join the artisanal mining space, right? But we should use our revenue generated as the primary tool towards winning them, right? Through our initiatives, through the kind of remuneration, right? Or the payments, right? In salaries, consultancy fees that we give them, because, it's applying their expert knowledge and their time, right? That you want. And it's always about looking at the value that they bring to the table. And that being said, I think I've addressed all the questions that have come my way. If there are any more, I'm happy to answer them. Over to you, Kasiri.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Panashe. As I listen to you, I'm completely speechless. I don't know where I'm getting this courage to facilitate this conversation, because you are so young, but you are so focused, and you know where you really want to take forward, how to take forward the business that you are involved in. I have a couple of questions that are coming. Some of them are written here, and I'm seeing Sophia at the end. So I'll come to you, Sophia. So let me read. This is a question that is coming from. Sorry, I saw a question that came from Linda to say, in terms of your curricula, what you learned at your university, was there a particular focus package that was targeting at small scale mining? So this is a question that that is come. Then how are you finding it to relate what you have learned in class against the ground on small scale mining? So the two questions. The other one is more theoretical. So in terms of what you've learned, how direct was it connected? Part of it, of course, to small scale mining. And now you are on the ground. You are now trying to bridge the gap between the theory and the practice. So what is your experience like? Are you feeling frustrated, or you share some of your frustrations, share some of your successes, share some of the lessons learned, so that they can be used to inspire others? But before you come in again, Sophia, I recognize you. Can you please unmute yourself and speak? Sophia? Sophia, can you hear me?
Yes, hello everyone.
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mkasiri. Thank you, Panashe, for a great presentation. I am a small scale miner and have been struggling so hard to grow my project over the years due to not being able to, due to lack of knowledge and also not being able to acquire finances to grow the project. Your presentation opened up my mind. I work with young people who are not really experts, but only have the experience and knowledge of mining extraction and also processing. I also work with mining students who are at Midland State University, mostly in Shishavane.
Sorry, is it me or what? Colleagues, can you hear me?
I think we lost Sophia's
We've
voice.
all lost Sophia.
Sophia's voice is
Okay.
lost.
No. So I was wondering if it was on my end. Sophia, once you are back, we are free to continue. I think she's out. But there are a couple of questions that had been asked before. The one of it, the two questions, I think, one related to your experience with your university, Panashe. Was there anything tailored that was specific for artisanal small scale mining? It's important that we learn from it. Then the second bit of it relates now that having acquired this vast professional knowledge on mining, we are on the ground. Of course, we want to hear successes, which are very, very critical. But what are your frustrations? What are some of the lessons learned? And even also success stories that you would want to quickly share with us in terms of bridging the gap between what really happens at university and what really happens on the ground. And if you had to go back and being a lecturer at a university, would you design a different course than the one that you received or what? So these are the two quick questions that I want to pose to you. Feel free to tackle them. Thank you. Over to you, Panashe. Sorry, Panashe, I'm not sure if it's on my end, but I can hardly hear you.
They teach us about small scale mining, yes, right. To a good degree, we were aware. We were not as aware, right, about the operational challenges and the things you would experience on site. So I guess, life is always teaching us and we should always keep learning. When I went out into industry, I did have a lot of doubt about the path itself because I had alternatives. I thought, why not go for a big mining house, with a nice package, and really just start out as a professional who is climbing the corporate ladder, as they say. However, I got to appreciate that a lot of the small scale mining that has been done is contributing larger than the big mines, the large scale mines within gold mining, more especially, right? So it's a very important sector of our economy. So that's something, I really looked at and said, small scale mining is the cornerstone. It's really propping up the economy and contributing towards the GDP in a substantial way. The sad thing
We've lost your sound again, Panashe. We lost your sound.
itself. We applied for an SG, which is a special grant, right, that you get to mine on our operation. Now, this you renew every 2 years, but then you need to do a forecast and you need to do a plan as to how much production are you planning to do, right? And what are the structures that you're going to put on site? And how much are you going to be investing? So that took longer than I had anticipated. And that was very frustrating. That, was an issue of concern to me, because you want security of tenure. You want to feel that working there safely without any risk in terms of getting piece of land taken away from you, and you want continuity. So that was a frustration. I think supply chains have also been an issue of concern. Just getting what you need on site, all your consumables, right? Explosives, chemicals, diesel, all those things that you need for production on a day-to-day have a lot of disruptions that sometimes happen. And our supply chains are not so stable, but they will grow. As we grow, those supply chains will grow because there's interdependency, and we will, assist each other to address certain issues that we face in the industry as a collective. But yeah, just to go back to the first question, it's really important that lecturers today and universities at large do a lot more to address this disconnect, right, between the disruptive technologies, right, and what they're doing, and the output or the throughput of universities in terms of graduates who are going out into the industry. There needs to be, a proactive way to actually get young professionals to get experience at small scale mines, because traditionally what you have happening is that university procedures require you to get 1 year of experiential training out in the industry, right? Fortunately, our university, removed that as part of the requirement until you graduate. But you do mine tours and mine visits. What I would recommend is that lecturers actually start doing mine tours and mine visits to small-scale operations with university students, right? And they get clearance to do so from the universities, because that's important. Young professionals will have to know how they can adapt. And with what's happening now and the kind of, economics, right, that we are seeing today, and the rise in, basic prices, the inflation that's happening, and, the instability of commodity prices, you will at some point consider, why don't I get into small scale mining? But you don't know the first thing about, small scale mining. You might know how to mine, at a very advanced level. But, a lot of people are, in a different world entirely. They are somewhere in dreamland. They are so far gone in how they are thinking, because it's very intellectual and philosophical, but ideally, right, and on a more practical basis, you would want to know how to help a small scale miner. So go, and get some experience and expose yourself to a small scale operation. And I think universities should just have even a week or two where they go to small scale, operations, and talk to small scale miners, talk to them about their challenges, and even, do a consult for free with them and assist them to address their challenges, because they are the ones propping up, most African economies. Yeah, so I think that should be the two questions that I got. Back to you, Kasiri.
Thanks very much, Panashe. We like your energy, your verve, and also your honesty in terms of some of the reflections on and suggestions on how to take this issue forward. I think when you look at how this discussion has been framed, it looks at the paradox of saying Africa is one of the challenges is how to solve the unemployment challenge. And we have a lot of professionals that are being churned from universities, but do they have the requisite or skills, or not only the requisite skills, but also interest? Are they also being opened their minds and challenged to say, guys, look at the informal sector of artisanal small-scale mining. You go there, you can make a huge difference. And then rather than to cry to say we are looking for employment, please blood yourself. But we are also getting to understand another texture that is very important. That to what extent, if we look at our universities and colleges, how are they tailor-making their programs, not only to target the large scale of formal businesses, but also to prepare the students that there is a life out there outside large scale mining. But at the same time, if we look at the blessings testimony, are we prepared to let it go? Are we prepared to open up our business? Are we challenged to work with young professionals, whether it's your son, it's your relative, or even outside? Is it something that you are willing to bite the bullet to say, this is a necessary cost? When you talk about cost, it's a cost-benefit approach. So it's not only to look at it from a cost side of it, but also to look at the benefit side of it. Because once you are a professional, definitely there are costs that are involved. But let's also be clear that there are also benefits that can accrue if we are to pick from Blessing's testimony. I have a comment from Pastor Pauline Mundia. The biggest challenge in artisanal small-scale mining is being an activity that is driven by poverty. As such, most operators do not take health or mine safety as a necessity in their operations. Yeah, that's a very good point Pauline is raising. But I think it is important that as we dissect issues to do with artisanal small-scale mining, we appreciate the differences that of the caliber of the entrepreneurs or the actors that are involved in the system. Some are in there for a livelihood approach, and some are in there as entrepreneurs making it big time. So how do we bring our policy response or even any intervention to accommodate and the complexities of artisanal mining? So we are now about to wrap up our conversation. 5 minutes left. Any burning comments, questions from the floor? Panashe, before we close, I'll give you the opportunity to say the last word.
Okay, thank you. Thank you once again. I think there's so much we can talk about. However, there's a lot more to implement. We need to talk the talk in certain instances to get, certain people attracted to what we are actually, discussing. But we need to walk the talk at the end of the day, right? And I think it's been an amazing platform, and seeing the initiatives that you've done over the course of this year alone, it's been really phenomenal, and there's so much headway you're making. And I also saw just a quick question that I wanted to respond to from Tsietsi. And he said, is there a way junior mining companies can absorb graduates if they have a limited budget and lack of funding? Yes, there is, because a lot of graduates are, quite intentional about thinking long term about being in the mining space. So you can give them an experiential learning opportunity where you cater for their basic needs. You house them, right? You give them some kind of allowance for transport, and then you get them on site. You get them to live on site. You should have the basics available, and try to have some kind of local place where they can get some social interaction and entertainment, because they are young people. But if you do that for 6 months before you give them a employment package, right, and they have an impact on your operations, you are recruiting quite efficiently as a junior miner, right? So I think you don't need to attract them with a big package or something of a very hefty salary. You don't need to do that when you have a limited budget. You need to sell your vision as a junior miner, and you need to give them some benefits, accommodate them, and then get them to apply themselves. Give them challenges, make them outside of their comfort zone, and they will deliver. And I'm sure, with what's happening, everyone wants to grow with an entity. So that being said, I think we need to take more steps towards, embracing the youth as much as we think different. We have the problem of ageism in most African spaces, right? And that's a concern, because because you are young, sometimes you are thought to be incompetent or too inexperienced to add value, which is never the case, right? So in closing, may we work together well to achieve what is best for our communities and what is best for our businesses. But if you want, there's an African proverb which says, if you want to go a short distance, go alone. But if you want to go quite far, go together. And it's important that we start moving as a unit, right, as a sector, through having more engagements like this, but also through walking the talk together and doing, right, more for our communities and for our businesses, because there should be an appreciation of how interdependent we are. We rely on our suppliers, we rely as well as on our utilities, our service providers. And once we work well with them and get young professionals on board, the only path is towards success. So thank you once again, and do enjoy the rest of your week.